Good Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Down to a few days until the Browns will get training camp underway at the Greenbrier out in West Virginia. Earlier this week, Deshaun Watson at his high school 7-on-7 passing camp out at Berea Mid-Park High School talked about the offense that Ken Dorsey is putting together along with Kevin Stefanski and that new revamped offensive coaching staff.
It's fun, it's exciting, and him and Kevin are doing a heck of a job of putting a nice playbook together for all of us to go out there and execute at a high level and be one of the top teams in the NFL. And that's the plan, and we're going to take it one day at a time and just continue to build on it.
With that, let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. So, Casey, we probably won't get a good look at what the offense looks like until, they start doing the joint practices maybe a little bit. Certainly we'll get a little bit better look at it in preseason. How different do you expect it to be?
Well, it's some of the stuff's going to be pretty similar. Some of the running formations, some of the things that we're used to seeing, they're going to play some of the hits. But I just believe the variations we're going to see in formation, the different looks, the amount of shotgun, the amount of motion, all the window dressing, I think that'll be the stuff that is new to us. It'll be interesting to see what the different kind of reads are and the concepts in the passing game. When they worked a lot of stick in the past, will they stay with that? Will they move to more of a seam-heavy approach? They have plenty of pieces in place. We can only confer what we know of Dorsey from his past days. But then you also have to take into consideration, people like Tommy Rees and what he did in college and the stuff that they could do with motions out of that and kind of facilitating the running game out of the shotgun. So we're going to notice a lot of similar concepts, but I think that a lot of the window dressing will make it feel a lot different.
The thing that I'm curious is when you think back to Deshaun Watson, the success he had in Houston, he processed things really quickly at the line of scrimmage. He saw matchups that they were trying to exploit, and they exploited the heck out of them. Now you could argue that, one year they were 4-12. They were a playoff team and played pretty well the first half of a playoff game. But when I think of Deshaun Watson at his best, that's what I think of. And I don't think they asked him to do enough of that his first 2 years with the Browns.
Yeah, and he was used to going to the line and calling the protections. That is something that they don't do in Cleveland. We'll see if that becomes part of his duties now. When I think about those, I just think of how he would work low to high and take those high percentage shots to Will Fuller, to DeAndre Hopkins. They always seem to find the explosives in Houston. And there were many games where it'd be a struggle in the first half, but they would find answers over the course of the game. And Watson was really good at that. And he would even elaborate on that in a lot of the post-game press conferences of what teams were trying to do. He could identify that, and they were able to find answers, So I think that's stuff they have to rely on in this offense.
Yeah, and again, you don't want him to have to. It was almost like he in this offense that they've had the last 2 years with Kevin Stefanski and Alex Smith. It's almost like he got caught in he's thinking. He's not going out and playing. And that's what you want Patrick Mahomes doesn't think. He goes out and he does it. Tom Brady doesn't think. He goes out and he does it. My one, criticism might be a harsh word, he looked like he was thinking, okay, I'm supposed to go from here to here and that's not him.
Yeah, and there's an amount of comfortability he has to get to so he can just be reactionary and not be thinking and not over-processing and just taking what the defense gives you. And because if you're doing that, if you're stuck in that mode, you're freezing. And it only takes a nanosecond in the NFL for windows to open and close. So you have to be able to be reactionary and rely on your instincts. And if you know the offensive intuitively, then you don't have that processing issue to where you get caught in that freeze moment. And there's also the aspect of he's also trying to win everything back. His past success, his reputation, the contract. There's a lot of things that go into this that are weighing on him, and he's trying to win all that back. And that's a tough place to be in as a quarterback in the NFL.
All right, so this is from CBSSports.com, ranking the 2024 quarterbacks by tiers. And all right, big three. I can't argue with these. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Those I get. Could join them next year. Joe Burrow, C.J. Stroud, and Jordan Love. I would pump the brakes on giving Jordan Love, the yellow jacket there. A guy named Carson Wentz comes to mind, but all right, I digress. Tier 3, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts. Tier 4, intrigue with question marks. Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, Tua Tagovailoa, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and Kyler Murray. I disagree strongly with the last three. Tier 5, you can win with them. Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Derek Cousins, Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew. Okay. Tier 6, backs against the wall. Bryce Young, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, and Daniel Jones. All right. I guess I see what they're saying. Watson hadn't played well in a couple of years. I would think I would rather have Deshaun Watson than Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Kyler Murray has huge question marks. Geno Smith, Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew, Bryce Young, Russell Wilson, and Daniel Jones. Again, maybe I'm being overly optimistic. I think this is kind of crapping on Deshaun Watson the first 3 years he was in the league.
Yeah, absolutely is. It's but it's popular to pile on him right now. If you were to be objective about it, I would say intrigue with question marks. I think that fits him. Or even you can win with him. I mean, they were 4-1 in the 5 games he started and finished last year. I think he belongs more in that tier than back against the wall. I just think it's overblown his struggles. If you look at the 5 games that he started and finished last year and extrapolated that to 16 games,
right,
he would have thrown for 3,400 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Now, that's not elite. I'm not going to argue that's elite, but that's far from trash. That isn't, it's overblown. But that's what we need to see because they've been such small sample sizes. And it doesn't help that the one game that he did play completely poor in was a national televised game on Monday night. That game, he was objectively bad. You'd have been better off punting in the second half of that game than running any offense the way he was playing that night.
Well,
but it's one step too far for me.
And even in that game, remember Nick Chubb got hurt, so I'm guessing a huge part of your game plan went to the sidelines with number 24, and so you're kind of adjusting on the fly, and it gets back to what I was talking about with him earlier. He was thinking way too much, But again, the beautiful part of it is he gets to go out and play. I'm with you, though. Intrigue with question mark, I would get. And the bottom line is, the 12 games he started, they're 8-4. And people say the contract, and I get it, and people say the draft picks, and I get it. The Browns did that because that's what they needed to do to go get him.
Yeah, and if somehow another elite tier type quarterback becomes available, wait to see what the next team gives up and the next contract that has to be signed to land a player of that magnitude. And people also like to, conveniently forget that there were like 6 to 8 other teams trying to get that same deal, and the Browns were just the one that pulled the trigger.
All right, this is 50 Things to Know with 50 Days Until the NFL Opener, CBSSports.com. Number 26, no team since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970 reached the playoffs without their Week 1 starting quarterback, running back, left tackle, and right tackle until the Browns did so last season. How they do it? With the league's best total defense, 270.2 total yards games allowed, the fewest since the 2014 Legion of Boom Seahawks, and their 267.1 total yards per game allowed. The other one, number 27, Myles Garrett, has 88.5 sacks in 100 career games, third most in a player's first 100 games since individual sacks have been tracked. 82 is when they started that. Only Hall of Famer Reggie White with 105. AFC North rival TJ Watt, 91.5, are better. You can say whatever you want about, Joe Flacco. The reason Joe Flacco won was because the Browns' defense. He turned the ball over way too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. They were explosive. I think that's why people look back fondly on that, because it was exciting.
They were fun.
And,
they were fun.
Yeah, you could think of several games where it wasn't exciting with PJ Walker. You were getting by and you were piecing together some wins, but you didn't have that sizzle that you have with Flacco in the vertical game. But I also think that Stefanski needs a little bit of credit for this. I understand the defense played out of its mind, but like they kept that ship afloat on tackles 5 and 6. Quarterbacks that weren't even on the roster to start the year played meaningful snaps. There was a ton of things that went wrong, and they managed to keep it afloat. And for me, that starts at the top. And also you hired Jim Schwartz. That is a huge factor to why the defense took the step that it did last year.
Yeah, and hold on to that thought, because in the next segment we'll talk a little bit about some coaching rankings in the NFL. Before we go to break, predicting last place team for every NFL division, CBSSports.com. AFC North, they say the Browns. Seems as though Watson's snapping out of playing like one of the worst quarterbacks in football feels unlikely as the veteran works his way back from shoulder surgery. As long as Joe Burrow remains upright for the Bengals, the Browns should fall back down the AFC North cellar, with Watson being their guy as the game at the game's most valuable position. It's kind of interesting. They don't mention that Joe Burrow's coming back from a broken wrist and has only finished 2 of his 4 years. Pittsburgh, how can you not talk about Justin Fields and Russell Wilson if you're going to crap all over Deshaun Watson? So, and see the stat that we just mentioned with how good the roster is. Could they finish last? Sure. Anybody in this division could finish last. That's how good the division is.
Yeah, but if you're predicting who's going to finish last and the name's not the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know if you're being objective. If you actually look at the rosters of all these teams, and they conveniently do not keep the same energy when they bring up Joe Burrow. In the difference between Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson's was a broken bone. Broken bones heal, and you can kind of track that. What Burrow's going through, other quarterbacks don't go through at all. And it's very vital. He already doesn't have giant hands, so his inability to, if his wrist fails, it's going to go bad, so if you were to judge the rosters evenly, and take the quarterback out of the equation, because if we're talking about Burrow and Watson and their injury concerns, you just look at the rosters aren't even close. The Browns roster is that elevated across the board, and there's depth there, and the Browns already have proof of concept because they were able to navigate a season without their starting quarterback, without Nick Chubb, without Jack Conklin. So they know that if it goes bad, they have internally what it takes to pull through. We can't say that about the other teams.
Yeah, and again, we know, you and I talk about this all the time. It's because I don't like Deshaun Watson, so the Browns are going to finish last in the AFC.
Yep.
It is what it is. That's fine. We'll see. We'll have some fun with it if it doesn't happen, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, and the Barking Browns podcast, and I going to step aside, take one time out, other side of the break, that top 10 coaches in the NFL. Where's Kevin Stefanski fall? We'll tell you on the other side of the break. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Can you believe this new $1,000 tax-free scratch-off? $18,000, $1,000 winners? Another winner? Good thing I brought my check-writing pens. You know what else is winning? My carpal tunnel syndrome. Wouldn't it be great for these guys if they could cash their tickets in online?
They can, with the Ohio Lottery app.
What? That's great! Wait, what's an app?
Attention shoppers, the Ohio Lottery's $1,000 tax-free $20 scratch-off is your best chance ever to win $1,000. And yes, you can cash it in online.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE with Casey Kinnamon from the Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Colin Cowherd from The Herd with Colin Cowherd, where Kevin Stefanski ranks in his NFL head coaches list.
Number 8, Kevin Stefanski, the Browns. Come on, man. This has been a tire fire my entire life. 2-time coach of the year, 2 playoff appearances, won a playoff game with Baker Mayfield. The guy is a really sharp dude. He and Andrew Berry know what they're doing. The Browns had the worst record in the league when he took that over. And I'm sorry, that matters to me. What do you take over? I don't care if you're a radio host. I don't care if you're a businessman. What do you take over? He took over the league's biggest circus, and he's made the playoffs twice.
Casey, I don't often agree with Colin Cowherd, but when I do, it absolutely matters that they were 1-31. Now, the challenge before Kevin Stefanski is you've gotten it back to respectability. Now, can you elevate it to elite? That's the mission of Barry and Stefanski after they get the extensions. So they're on their second contracts. Now, take us to where we want to go.
Yeah, and the first step for me is stacking back-to-back seasons, double-digit wins, playoff appearances, and make a run. They came in 2020 and kind of it took off faster than I think even maybe they anticipated. But then you had a couple down seasons. Then you have last year. Now you got the stack back-to-back. That's how you start to climb. And it's all there for them. We talked about it before, and it's the nucleus of this team. There's plenty of talent, but there is a very high elite level of nucleus of this team that is all under the age of 30. This is set up to win for the next 3-4 seasons at this. And in that window is when you have to win it all. And that's what they're there for. It's every team's goal, but it's not realistic going into every season for every team. The Browns are at that point now where they're at the doorstep, and they've just got to take that next step. And if they do that, they'll be etched in history.
Yeah, and it starts with winning the AFC North. Not an easy thing, and the reason that I think that's the doorway, that's the pathway to a deep playoff run, because you start getting home playoff games in Cleveland in January. Nobody wants to come here. I am old enough to have covered home playoff games here. Nobody wants to be on that lakefront with the wind whipping in.
Well, that's another thing that they've done during their tenure is they've made it a true home field advantage again. For years, we could call ourselves a dog pound, and we know we're rowdy fans, but it was not a place where opposing teams struggled. It has finally become that. And that is the reason they have to win the North this year. You'd feel way better about your chances knowing if you kick the playoffs up on the lake. So I think you're 100% correct. That is the goal. That's the objective, and it's flat out time. It's time for them to go and win the North.
Here's the other thing: in his time with the Browns, really, Baker Mayfield made it through the first season healthy, and they won the playoff game COVID year. Other than that, he hasn't had a healthy quarterback. I mean, Mayfield got injured early in his second year. Watson had the 11-game suspension. Watson injured early in last season. I want to see him with the same quarterback, healthy, for 16 games that can play at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the main objective too for the quarterback scenarios. We have to see Watson healthy to know what he is. We keep getting these start and stops. That's what his tenure in Cleveland's been. Obviously in 22 he's suspended for the first 11, comes on late, doesn't look great. You go 3-3. But last year you started to see it at certain times when they started to get a little continuity, and then the injuries were just setbacks. So they need to get a full breath of a season with Deshaun Watson. And if you do that, I think you're in a very good spot with the way Stefanski can dial things up, the overall talent of this team, and I think that they have the upper bound limits to really challenge for the AFC.
So let's take a look at the linebacking core, the linebacking room, if you will. You got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Diabate, Tony Fields, Jordan Hicks, Caleb Johnson, Winston Reed, Charlie Thomas. Bookie Watson is intriguing. Devin Bush, former first-round pick who played well his rookie year and hadn't been able to get it back since suffering a pretty substantial injury a few years ago. I think with the addition of Hicks especially, the continued growth of Owusu-Koramoah and drafting Watson, who SEC Player of the Year defensively, I think the linebacking core is better. I mean, Walker couldn't stay healthy long enough to be a factor. Taki was solid, but Hicks is an upgrade. And I know the defensive tackle room with the addition of Jefferson and Michael Hall Jr. will be better. To me, it sounds like the defense has gotten better in the middle, which is what you need.
Yeah. And I've been saying it since they signed Hicks. They're in a better spot this year than they were last year. And they weren't in a bad spot last year, but as we know, Walker is a great leader, but he couldn't stay healthy and on the field. I do think they'll miss Talkie, that physical presence. He was a veteran who grew into that role. It's going to be a lot to ask Watson to be ready for that role day one. But the good news is they hardly ever play three linebackers, so it won't be like just thrown into the fire. They'll be able to, slowly uptick his snaps, get him prepared. Because you don't play Baltimore right away. You don't play Philadelphia to week 6. So when you think about the instances where you'll need three linebackers, I think that's what you're looking for, week 6. But also, you got Devin Bush, which is a lottery ticket. And I believe it's a very high athletic profile depth linebacker that they haven't had. They haven't had that since 2020. So to get a guy like that who can just be a chess piece that you can kind of move around, exploit matchups, and you don't have to just place him in one position. You can kind of let him move all around that linebacker room. And I just think having an athletic depth piece like that is going to be a huge plus for Jason Tarver.
Yeah, and for Jim Schwartz. He's all about finding matchups and exploiting them, and that's that. Devin Bush can do that in certain instances. This from Dog Pound Daily, 3 stats where the Browns could regress in 2024. Number 1, defensive interceptions. 2023, they had 18. That ranked 3rd in the league. That surprised me a little bit. Defensive yards surrendered. 2023, they surrendered 4,593. That was 1st in the league. Rushing yardage, 2023, 2,017 yards. That ranked 12th in the league. I think their rush defense is going to improve. They may surrender more yards total because they're playing pretty good quarterbacks. And I'd be disappointed if they don't turn the ball over more.
Yeah, I seem to think that they'll get more than 18 interceptions. They've done nothing but improve the pass rush. Also from the interior, you're speeding up quarterbacks' processes, and there's just going to be errant balls thrown just because they have to get rid of it. When you have sticky man coverage with the way the Browns do, and if you also factor in a healthy Juan Thornhill, I just think that number should be, 20 or above. And the likelihood they'll probably give up more total yards. I mean, they were that stingy. It was 10 years since the team had given up that little amount of yards, so they could regress there and still be elite, but I do think that the rushing defense will be better because of Jordan Hicks. He's a cleanup tackler. He's 100 tackles like clockwork, so I think when you have him to play off of JOK, because JOK is awesome at getting, even when he doesn't make the tackle in the backfield, redirecting ball carriers, when you have a linebacker like Hicks who can play cleanup, I just think that rush defense is going to be improved.
All right, training camp gets underway Thursday out at the Greenbrier. What are you paying attention to early, and what do you really want to see early?
Well, it's going to be hit or miss. We don't know exactly what they're going to implement, how much live action they're going to see, what Watson's going to be allowed to do right off the rip. He finished training camp pretty strong. The little one they had, and he looked his arm looked pretty live towards the end of it. Are they going to tamper him, or are they going to give him back-to-back work days, or are they still going to kind of tier it where he's a day on, day off? Because for me, it's all about health and its repetitions. It's about getting implemented into this offense, getting familiar with everything around you. So I need to see him on the field and practicing. I think that is a huge key for me. And I need to see what kind of formations they utilize. How much shotgun are they going to utilize? What kind of rotation are their running backs going to be in? Because I don't expect Chubb to be a go during the Greenbrier. But I want to see, what is it, Ford? Is it Foreman? How does Nyheim Hines figure into this? Is he going to be ready? So a lot of it's health, but a lot of it's also personnel utilization.
Yeah, to your point, especially because they're supposed to have these option or choice routes, that you need the quarterback and receiver on the same page, or those things can blow up in a hurry. All right. Before I let you go, if you saw this, it would be kind of raising up the red flags going, ooh, I don't want to see that.
Well, it's the workload of Deshaun Watson. If he goes and he practices one day and he can't go for 2 days after that would be a big red flag for me. You want to think everything's progressing the way it needs to, but like we just talked about, it's familiarization, it's time on task. He needs to be on the field. But if he's not healthy, then we're just spinning our wheels here, and they need to kind of pivot and go a different direction. So it's just about him stacking days and taking those shots and his arm looking live. If that happens, it's all systems go.
Absolutely, I'm with you. You want to feel good about the quarterback and the offense that they're playing in during training camp. Casey Kinnamon, Orange and Brown Report, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. You guys have a good weekend.
All right, Casey Kinnamon. Again, you can catch his stuff, Orange and Brown Report. He is also the co-host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast and the Barking Browns podcast. We will continue talking Browns in training camp. Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, straight ahead. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Training camp officially gets underway a week from today out at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. A guy that will be there, Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Lance, let's do a film breakdown video analysis of some of the camp battles that you're going to pay attention to throughout camp, but we'll begin next week, and we'll start with the tackles. I think that's probably one of the biggest questions, and it's a great thing that you got three guys that have starting experience in the NFL. There's not a lot of teams that can say that.
Well, when you look at these three tackles, all three are starters, in my opinion. It's going to be really hard to keep DeJuan Jones off the field. If you look at some of these battles, there's some battles that people have, the fourth or fifth receiver, maybe the end of the defensive line room. But I think some really things important tackles. So you can take a look at DeJuan Jones right here. His ability to move his feet in a small area and use his length. So once again, see his arm extension here. But let's go back here. So you can see him set quick. You're going to see him use his hands independently. One of the things I like about DeJuan Jones is that he uses independent hands. So if we go back here to this first clip, you're going to see him be very, very fast and then use either hand. And you'll see where that length has effect on TJ Watt. DeJuan Jones can get his hands on TJ Watt before TJ Watt can get into a move, and it just kind of thwarts him. And this is what he does with that length. Not many guys, him and Orlando Brown, I say it all the time, only guys that can do this. This being said, with like Jedrick Wills and Conklin, Jones can do things that those guys can't. So it's going to be very hard for me to see DeJuan Jones not on the field. But I know Conklin's a starter, and I know Wills is going to be fighting for a spot too in his fifth year. So this is for most, this is the biggest battle here at camp, and I really look forward to seeing these guys down at the Greenbrier.
And again, it just shows you how big DeJuan Jones is. Those are linebackers, not safeties and not secondary guys that he just dwarfs in size. So another one that, the next clip that we're going to look at, you mentioned Jedrick Wills, and I think Browns fans are a little bit tougher on Wills, and I think the Browns like him more than their fan base does, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, there's no question. And, even when I'm down at camp, so you'll see here just some of the clips I have at camp, just him working his feet and working in practice, working on this inside zone. This is the last year being in the camp. The thing I like about Jedrick Wills, and the reason I like this clip, is that he works hard in practice. Now, the thing that Jed Wills doesn't have all the time is he doesn't have great body language, right? So he does not seem like he's maximizing his effort at times. But I disagree with some of the people's negative thoughts on Jed Wills. He does have some inconsistencies. And I think the reason for me that I have concern with him at times is that I have seen him do it in practice over and over and over against a really good Browns defensive line. He can pass protect, he can run block. He's not a killer in the run game like those guards in the center, but he does get in the way. He does use his hands very well. He's a very good athlete. Now, I think Jed Wills has got something to prove this year because, again, I don't see DeJuan Jones going anywhere. Conklin's a starter who you're going to get consistency out of. Jed Wills is the one guy that you can get a 0 out of 10 scale. You can get a 10, but you can also get a 5. So it's going to be very interesting, but he's also never been pushed. This year he's going to be pushed. So as you can see here, great feet inside zone here, gets that inside arm in. Really talented, works hard in practice. Want to see better body language out of him, and I want to see him reach his potential, which is very high.
Yeah, and we've talked, and Mary Kay has even said, DeJuan Jones, if needed, could switch over to left tackle. It's not saying that they have to do that they can do that. It's that she feels, and a lot of the Browns people feel, if DeJuan Jones needs to go play left tackle, he can.
Well, the thing about left tackle, obviously it's different footwork, and the only way you're able to do that is if you're able to move your feet. And DeJuan Jones is a basketball player, and I had some guys when I was coaching in high school that I tried to get out, these big guys who play below the rim. DeJuan Jones is a basketball player, so that tells me he has great feet. So the thing that hurts those right tackles going to left tackle or vice versa is their ability to handle that footwork, especially in the kick when they kick back in pass protection. DeJuan Jones is such a good athlete, that will not be a hard transition whatsoever for him. He's an intelligent football player, and his footwork and his athletic ability and his ability to move his feet in a small area would make that transition seamless. He would absolutely have zero trouble moving to the left tackle because of his ability, his basketball feet, and his ability to move in small areas.
Just something to keep an eye on as training camp goes, because I'm sure they're going to be looking at every option to find the best one. All right, so as we move on, fourth safety. You know, it's kind of nice. We're talking about third, fourth, fifth options in these training camp battles, and none of them are really, you know, the number one job. All right, fourth safety. What do you like at this clip? And this is a guy that played pretty well as a rookie undrafted free agent, Ronnie Hickman.
So one thing you see, so you're right. So when we talked, before this started, we talked about, like, you know, the Browns have lots of players and they're very loaded, but we know from last year you got to have depth, right? So my thing with these, I went away from receiver, some camp battles that will be some, everybody knows, but I went with some camp battles maybe everybody's not going to know. This is the third and fourth receiver. So DB, safety. So you're thinking, obviously, Delpit, you're thinking Thornhill, and then you got McLeod, who's a veteran coming back. However, McLeod's most likely in his last year, he's had some injury problems. You know, my thing is, are the Browns satisfied with Hickman and DeAnthony Bell? So Hickman right here does a great job of reading quarterbacks' eyes. He's got very good skills. The thing about Hickman, he can play close to the line of scrimmage like Delpit. He can also play center field like Thornhill. He's got great ball skills. He plays with great length when he's back there. Obviously, a guy who had a great year last year, but are the Browns comfortable with him being the third safety if necessary? I think Rodney McLeod's going to have a great year, but I think part of what he's going to make him have a great year is getting this next group of guys ready. Is it going to be, Hickman, or is it going to be Bell? DeAnthony Bell's put a lot of good tape on film as well.
So you mentioned him, and again, just like Hickman, a little bit older, but a undrafted free agent that they signed as a rookie. Bell also plays really well in special teams, which will be interesting to see as well.
So you just called it. You absolutely called. So if some of these positions, linebacker, outside linebacker, tight end, some of these positions that have guys that are questionable, with this new kickoff rule, who becomes more important? Is it Ronnie Hickman or is it DeAnthony Bell? And I think that comes to, how much they can become the third safety with McLeod, or be kind of interchangeable parts with McLeod, because this new kickoff rule makes a guy like DeAnthony Bell a huge weapon. This guy is a guy who's a special team demon. And with the new kickoff, the new kickoff is about as big a play or big a change in football since like the forward pass, as Mary Kay said. And I agree, it's going to be a huge thing. And there's going to be positions, Bubba Ventrone is going to get. There's going to be some guys who are specialists as kickoff guys and kickoff return guys. And these guys, Hickman, Bell, they also got to be really good on that kickoff and kickoff return to make this football team, because guys like Nathan Watson, guys like Diabate, these guys are going to be fighting for jobs, and they're going to be important on that kickoff and kickoff return.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Nobody really knows how that's going to play out as well. But you know what? You certainly, those are guys that Andrew Berry did a good job in the scouting department, did a good job of identifying and bringing in. Whether they make the Browns or not, those guys are NFL players. That's how good this roster is.
Well, the thing I like about a lot of people give the Browns front office credit because he does not get rid of his draft picks. And I'm absolutely okay with that, because once again, that's their plan. And their plan says, we scouted these guys. These are the guys we like. We're going to stick with them maybe longer than people like. But I'm very much okay with that. That means they trust those guys who are going out scouting. They trust the guys that are going to match their scheme. That's very, very important, that you trust your entire organization. If you go see, and I think the Browns are, from top to bottom now, are very stable and very structured, and they have a plan. So they stick with these guys, and these guys, these Hickman, these Bell, these guys who they get as free agents. When you go watch them practice, they're involved just as much as the starters, and that's why I think these guys have had success when they go in, because they're treated like starters. They've been scouted like starters. It's Kevin Stefanski and his staff. They expect them to make plays when they go in, and these guys are all good, and that's a credit to them. And I like the fact that they stick with their guys because it's what they believe in.
Yeah, you know what? That's how you build a system. That's how you can replenish a system with young guys, is by being patient enough. All right, let's move on to the third guard. Take us through this clip, what you see here.
So here's another thing. You're going to see Zach Zinner at the right guard. He's going to pick up a blitz. Now, the thing I like about Zach Zinner is that Zach Zinner matches, see him here at right guard. He's going to pick up that blitz and backer. He's pretty violent when he plays. He's very much a Teller, Posick, Bitonio kind of guy. He's very physical at the point of attack. He's very good in pass protection. He comes from a pro-style offense where they were in the huddle with Jim Harbaugh. They ran the ball with power and zone and pin and pull. So he's done all these NFL-type things already with Jim Harbaugh. The thing I wonder is, are they satisfied with Dunn? Because Bitonio and Teller are getting a little bit older. Bitonio doesn't practice as much. So if something happens to those two stud guards, are they comfortable putting a rookie in there? Or do they want Dunn, who's been with them a while and has a pretty good background of playing well when he goes in? They have really, really high expectations of Zach Zinner. Zach Zinner doesn't get hurt last year. He's much higher on a lot of people's draft boards. So, once again, a draft, a kind of a camp battle for me that's kind of going unknown is who's going to be the third guard if something was to happen to their two all-pro guards. Is it going to be Dunn? Is it going to be Zach Zinner? Is it going to be somebody else they picked up? Or is it somebody else who they're going to pick up? Very interesting. I want to see who gets in there, especially after Bitonio. Bitonio doesn't practice as much as he used to, so I look forward to seeing who's at that guard spot.
Yeah, I mean, it sure seems like Zinter is the future. Let's see who the present is in the event that they need some depth. I'm with you. Another one, third linebacker, and this guy has me really intrigued. How Jim Schwartz plans on using him. It's Devin Bush.
So you can see him here make the flat. He's going to read the double team, and he's just going to come with his hair on fire and B gap and make a play. And this is what he does really, really well. Now, for some reason, after his rookie year of almost being NFL Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, he really has struggled in the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of it had to do with an ACL surgery. When I went to camp, obviously, you don't have pads on at mandatory minicamp. I just wanted to see him move in a small area. And the thing that I was really impressed with was his explosion. He's not an overly big guy. They have him at 230. I don't know if he's 230, but he is very explosive, and he kind of fits perfectly what Jim Schwartz wants to do. Jim Schwartz does not want to wait. He wants to get in those gaps and go, and this is what Devin Bush does very well. So I'm interested to see, because this spot really intrigues me. You have Devin Bush here who makes a play. You have Tony Fields, who does nothing but make plays when he's in the game. Then you have Nathaniel Watson, who you went out and drafted, who is a big, big kid. And then you have Mohamed Diobate, who's another guy who physically fits the role. He's 6'2", and he's just a really good-looking athlete. So you got a lot of guys fighting for that third linebacker spot. Then you're also going to play nickel, right? So you're going to have Newsome at that spot a bunch. So this third linebacker, again, very important that they're the third linebacker, but all these guys are going to have to be on that kickoff and kickoff return to make this football team. This is a great battle. This is a very underrated battle, this third linebacker spot during camp. These 4 guys are going to play really, really hard.
Yeah, the thing that I keep coming back to with Devin Bush is, the rookie year, he was one of the leading vote getters for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He got hurt. Jim Schwartz, when Andrew Berry goes and gets a guy like this, Jim Schwartz already knows he does this well, and this well. Here is how he fits into what we're going to do. And it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. They've given people time to develop, so they know what they're looking for with traits and characteristics.
Well, you just said it best. So many coaches, and I used to say this all the time, and my dad was a big believer in this. Every player has a weakness. Every player has something they struggle with. But especially at the NFL level, at all levels of football, there's things that guys are really, really good at. And Jim Schwartz focuses on what they're good at, not what they're poor at. And Devin Bush struggles with some things. He struggles maybe reading the double team. He struggles maybe understanding gaps and things like that, or he reads too much or he thinks too much. The one thing Devin Bush can do is run. Another thing he can do is get in a gap and go. and he's a good tackler. And that's what he has to do in Jim Schwartz's defense. So Jim Schwartz is saying, hey, we can go get this guy. I think we can get him at a low risk because, we can go nickel if we need to. We have Hicks and we have JOK. We have some other guys who can be the backup linebacker, but this is a guy who can run. This is a guy who can penetrate. This is what we do on defense. This is, like me and you have talked about, this is his strength. They're not going to make him do things he can't do. They're going to make him play the line of scrimmage and play run game and get in those gaps and go.
All right, so training camp starts a week from yesterday, a week from Thursday. When you look at how this kind of plays out, is this offense with Ken Dorsey, is it going to look, and we keep hearing, and Mary Kay keeps alluding to it, is it going to look like what Deshaun Watson played with with Jim O'Brien in Houston? Is that kind of the vibe that you're getting from it?
I'm actually different. I don't think it'll be as different as everybody thinks. And the reason why is because if you go back and watch that 2020 film, and I watched every throw of that year many, many times. And one thing is that year the Texans were 4-12. They were really, really poor and epically poor, incredibly poor on defense. So that forced them to throw the ball. That forced them to be an empty. That forced them to try to make up. Football is still a team game. And if you look at C.J. Stroud last year in the playoffs, you have to make the throws when they're presented to you. You have to make the runs when they're presented to you in big times. So, no, I don't think what I see more with Dorsey is I see more pre-snap movement. I see the Browns not being stuck in place sometimes, a lot of RPOs, and not RPOs necessarily we're automatically going to pass, but just run game. Dorsey, in my opinion, they're never in a bad play. So a quarterback can check the run either way. He can check to a pass if he needs to. There's always a built-in RPO on almost all of his passes. So, no, I do see them being in more 11 personnel. But Kevin Stefanski, it's his job, and it's his job on the line. So they're still going to run counter. They're still going to run pin and pull. They're still going to – but what they're going to do, they're going to have options with that. So if they're going to run a counter and there's 7 guys in the box, Dorsey's going to give Watson the ability to throw the ball and not run into a loaded box. So I don't see the schemes being different. I see the options off the scheme being more diversified moving forward.
So you're allowing, in theory, Watson to figure out if there's a matchup that they want to exploit.
Exactly. So you run, instead of just saying you're getting a formation run, pin and pull to the right, you're saying we're going to get in a formation run, pin and pull to the right. If they give us something to Elijah Moore or Amari Cooper or Tillman or Judy, and they give us something we like, Njoku, they're going to have that built in on the backside or front side. So they're going to be reading backers on the second level. Our safety's going to get nosy, then he'll take a shot over top. But the actual run game, the only thing I see really different is they'd like to run tackle trap a little bit more, but it's still a gap scheme. Kevin Stefanski's very diverse in his run game, gap schemes, zone schemes, inside, outside zone, pin and pull, counter, power. He does all those things. They all do. But I think the window dressing, the pre-snap motion, and I think the availability to get out of a bad play or have a option if somebody's not covering or doing what they're supposed to defensively, that's what I see differently. But when they hand the ball off, it'll look very similar in my opinion.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Lance will be at the Greenbrier, and we will be talking to him with some video breakdown coming back from training camp. It all gets underway a week from yesterday, so Thursday at the Greenbrier. Lance, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good film breakdown, video analysis. We're going to turn our attention to the Guardians. Second half, the mythical half of the second season starts. Guardians will be hosting the Padres over at Progressive Field. Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter, straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We turn our attention to the Guardians' second half of things get underway tonight at Progressive Field, a 3-game series with the San Diego Padres. Guardians are 4.5 games ahead of the Minnesota Twins in the AL Central, have the best record in the American League. Let's welcome in Paul Hoynes. He is Guardians beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Hoynesy, I know you've been asked this by some fans. How do the Guardians prevent the post-All-Star Game blues from setting in?
Well, Dave, I think, they're in a pretty good spot. They kind of limped into the All-Star break. They went 2-5 on that last road trip. But, I think everyone knows what this team needs. They need another arm in the rotation. Now, where that comes from, is up in the air. Could Logan Allen and Tristan McKenzie get their act together in Columbus, come back up and help them? Or do they have to go out and get us another starting pitcher?
So we'll get into that just a second. It's kind of strange. We're talking about starting pitching for so long. This organization has hung its hat on starting pitching. They call it the pitching factory. Again, from one of your Hey Hoynesies, when did it switch to relief pitching, and do you see them going out and getting one of those starters that they need?
Yeah, well, we've seen this, Dave. When they brought up Bieber and Savali from the 2016 draft class, but in 2018, 2019, those guys came up. Then we just saw it last year with Logan Allen, Bybee, and Gavin Williams. And you bring those guys up. Those are your prospects. Those are the guys who are at AAA, AA that you were developing. And, I don't think any really organization can, bear the weight of, okay, we're going to bring our top 3 guys up. And now you turn around and you look back at the minor league system, and who else is there? Who else? Not too many teams can go 5, 6, 7, 8, prospects deep that are major league ready. So I think that's what the Guardians are running into right now. Their top prospects are already in the big leagues, and they've got to develop some more.
And it takes time. There are guys, Bybee and Gavin Williams came quick. They were like a 1st and a 5th round pick, and they moved through the system and have had some degree of success. Why do you think they decided to send Logan Allen down that last performance? I think he had 9 strikeouts.
Yeah, that was a tough call by Stephen Vogt and the organization. He had 9 strikeouts. He was 2 out. The thing that got me, he was 2 outs away from a win. They take him out in 4 1/3 innings. And I always think, the win has been devalued through baseball. I get it, from an analytical standpoint. But the pitcher is still the only guy that has a W or an L next to his name in the box score. So, that always kind of frosts me when a manager does that, and when a pitcher is, he's struggling a little bit, but like you said, he had 9 strikeouts. So that's a tough call, but he did have 93 pitches. Yep. And I think they want Allen to get, more defined in his pitches to become more efficient.
Yeah, and the reason for that is look at all of the arm trouble you have. We've talked about this on this show for a number of times. In the American League, there are 59 pitchers on the 60-day injured list. That's major injuries. You want to manage the workload. So once you're approaching 100 pitches, they shut it. That's the limit. You don't go over that very often in today's even minor league baseball. In today's professional baseball, 100 pitches is a lot.
Yeah, that's for some reason, that's the cutoff point. You saw it in the first half, late in the first half, Paul Skeens, Pittsburgh's #1 pick, had a no-hitter going. He had reached, right around 100 pitches, and they lift him without, a second thought. So, that's the way baseball is managed today, that's the way pitchers are managed.
And again, it comes back to health. You've got a huge investment in these guys, both monetarily and developmentally, and you're trying to maximize what you get out of them. All right, this is kind of interesting. 6 starting pitchers the Guardians could target at the trade deadline, and that's creeping in. It's July 30th, so it's only a couple of weeks away. Eric Fetty, he's 31 years old. He's having a really good year for the White Sox. 7-3 record, 2.99 ERA. He's owed $7.5 million this year. It's prorated based on how far the season is. He's got $7.5 million next year on his contract. Kikuchi, $10 million prorated this year. Is a free agent next year. Not having a great year with the Blue Jays. 4-8, 442. Max Scherzer has a full no-trade clause. He has said he's not waiving it. We don't need to go into him. Tyler Anderson, $13 million this year and next. 8-8 record, 297. So that's got to keep an eye on. He is 34 years old, having a good year for the Angels. Nathan Eovaldi, $17 million prorated this year, $20 million next year. He's really come on. He's 34, 6-3 this year, 297. Frankie Montas, 31 years old for the Reds, $14 million prorated this year, $20 million next year, mutual player and club option, 4-7 record, 438. When you look at those, Fetty makes a lot of sense. Anderson might make some sense too.
Yeah, Fetty makes the most sense to me. We've seen him, 3 times against Cleveland. He's pitched well all 3 times. The problem is dealing in your division. The White Sox are going to ask for a lot. They know they basically have Cleveland over the barrel, so they're going to get as much as they can from him. So that's really I like him out of that group, probably the most.
He pitched in Korea last year and won the KBO's equivalent of the Cy Young. So he went to Korea, figured it out, and has come back and has had the success in the big leagues too. All right. Position players, I would not discount them adding a starting pitcher, relief pitcher. They're going to try to improve any way they can. 5 position players the Guardians should target. Bo Bichette is who they have here. 26 years old, $12.08 million prorated this year, $17.5 million due next year. He is struggling. 222, 4 homers, 30 runs batted in on the year. He might need a change of scenery. I'm not sure he fits what the Guardians would do. Taylor Ward is 30 years old. 4.8 million this year is what he's due. Arbitration eligible for the next 2 years. 228. Has hit 14 homers, 44 runs batted in. Started off strong this year in his struggle. Jazz Chisholm is a young guy, 26 years old. He has the versatility to play anywhere in the middle of the field. 2.6 million prorated this year. He has 2 more years of arbitration eligibility. 249 average, 12 homers, 42 runs batted in. This guy is the one that jumps off the page, though. Brent Rooker, 29 years old. He is only due $750,000 this year. It's prorated. He's got 3 years of arbitration coming up. He's hitting 291, 21 homers, and 62 runs batted in. There will be a lot of teams that are after Brent Rooker. Jesse Winker is an interesting one as well. He's 30 years old, 1.5 prorated this year, 1.5 million. He's a free agent next year. 260 average, 11 homers, 43 runs batted in for the Nationals. Nationals have already brought up James Wood. They have Dylan Cruz, who is in the minors as a center fielder, that they're looking for a way to bring up. So he's intriguing. You look at those guys. Do you see any fits there?
Yeah, I loved Winker when he was with the Reds. The Guardians tried to get him, but they couldn't. The Reds packaged Suarez and Winker, so it was too much money for Cleveland. He kind of went to Seattle and didn't really play well, but he seems to have maybe gotten a little revival with the Nationals. And, I like Rooker. We saw him a lot with the Twins. He came up with the Twins. He's got power, but that's going to cost you, like you said, David. That's the big ticket item, I would think, as the deadline approaches. Yeah,
and again, you do need a starting pitcher, and I think if you can find someone that you can hit 5th or 6th in this order, it just makes it kind of slots everybody behind it a little more comfortably, and then the young guys, there's not as much pressure on. There's a whole lot of reasons to go and get a bat that you can put in the middle of that lineup. It will help the pitching as well. All right, we kind of touched on this. Some of the guys, and Robert Luis is another guy, or Luis Robert is another guy that might be available. Dealing in your division, it's going to cost you more. I don't think it necessarily kills it. You just, the teams are going to look for a little bit better prospect than normal.
Yeah, and it depends what kind of relationship you have. That Cleveland has with the Twins and the White Sox and Kansas City. The divisional rivals. That counts a lot in past history. We've seen them make some trades with the White Sox. It's so that it kind of makes sense to me. And the whole thing to me is the mindset of Cleveland's organization, of their front office. Do they really and truly believe that this is a championship team, that this is a team that can not only win the division, but go deep into the postseason? If that's the belief, and they've given you no reason to think otherwise, then you got to go for it.
Yeah, and we'll get to it in a minute. They've shown a history of doing that when they believe in that, and I'm with you. So everybody remembers last year at the trade deadline, and a lot of fans were disappointed, that thought they were still in it. The Guardians traded Ahmed Rosario to the Dodgers for Noah Syndergaard. They traded Aaron Savali to the Rays for Kyle Manzaro. That was a little bit before the deadline. And they traded Josh Bell to the Marlins for Gene Segura, basically his contract, and Khalil Watson. Watson is a guy that is already in Double-A, and he's younger than the guy they drafted #1 overall. So he profiles, he was like 18th pick, 16th pick in the first round. He's an intriguing guy. He may be a trade chip right now because of how young he is, and he's having some success at the Double-A level.
Yeah, he certainly could. They've got a lot of infielders. He's a middle infielder. He's a shortstop. I think he can play other positions. So that's a guy that maybe other teams would be interested in. Certainly. I think so we'll see what happens, but that it's an interesting situation to be in, and I think you'd rather be in Cleveland's position than, let's say, the White Sox position.
Without question. The other thing about dealing with the White Sox, they're going to be looking for guys that are down at high A and A, because they need to build it back up. It's not a 1 or 2 year fix with them. They're going to have to tear it off. If they trade, Jimenez and Robert, they're going to tear it down, and then they're going to be looking for guys that are 4 or 5 years, 3-4 years away from being ready to help at the major league level, which could factor in to positively for the Guardians.
Yeah, that's the point. That White Sox team is a strange team to me, David. They brought all that young talent together, and except for the 1 year under Tony La Russa, it never gelled. It never has produced. It's always they've had injury problems. They just don't seem to be function well as a team. So it might be time for them to start over. And if it does, some pretty good players are going to be on the market.
All right, we've talked about the Guardians kind of going for it, or Guardians/Indians at the trade deadline. We're going to take a look at the 5 most memorable trade deadlines over the past several years. We're not going all the way back into the 90s, but we're going to start. This was when the Guardians were out of it, Indians, and it was a pretty good one. They traded Jake Westbrook and Ryan Ludwig, three-team trade. So the Cardinals got Westbrook and Nick Greenwood. Padres got Ryan Ludwig, and the Indians got a guy named Corey Kluber, who had a lot of success here. 2019, this one was kind of a giveaway and get some, too. They traded Trevor Bauer, who had issues with Terry Francona before the trade deadline, kind of threw the ball into center field, if you remember. Padres get Taylor Trammell. Indians get Yasiel Puig, Franmil Reyes, Logan Allen, not the young Logan Allen, the older Logan Allen, who has since been traded away, Victor Nova and Scott Moss. 2016, this one, the Indians went for it and helped them get to the World Series. They trade away Clint Frazier, Justice Sheffield, 2 of their top prospects, Ben Heller and Faye Eisen, and they get Andrew Miller, who was huge in that World Series run. 2018, they went for it. They traded away Francisco Mejia, really highly thought of prospect. They got Brad Hand and Adam Simber to bolster the bullpen. And back in 2011, similar to this year, they went out and they got Ubaldo Jimenez. They gave up Drew Pomerantz, who was their first overall pick. Alex White, highly thought of pitcher. Matt McBride, Joe Gardner. And again, Pomerantz kicked around the big leagues. That 2011 trade shows you prospects are prospects. But it goes to show you, this front office, when they believe they're in it, they're willing to trade their prospects. But they don't kid themselves when they're kind of on the fringe.
Yeah, we saw them. They believed they were on the fringe last year, so they traded their veterans. I think they were a game and a half out of first place. But that team had never really shown the ability to put a long winning streak together. I don't think they obviously didn't believe they were going to catch the Twins and win the division. But in other cases we've seen, with the Andrew Miller deal, that was a stroke of genius. That was the deal they had to make. It really fortified them and gave them the impetus to reach Game 7 of the World Series. And Corey Kluber, stuck in Double-A with the Padres, it really didn't have a future there. Somebody saw something, a scout saw something in him, brought him here, and he wins 2 Cy Youngs, like a 3rd or 4th place finalist a couple times. Really, just one of the great pitchers in Cleveland history.
Gut feeling, knowing what you know, seeing where the front office kind of views things. Do they go out and potentially trade some of those prospects to get maybe a bat, maybe a starting pitching, and at very least try to fortify that bullpen, make a already strong bullpen even stronger?
Yeah, Dave, I think they're going to do something. And the thing with Cleveland is you never really know which way they're going to go. I mean, they always talk about incremental improvement, and I think they have to take a bigger step this time. You just can't bring in a utility infielder. You've got to bring in somebody that has an impact either offensively or on the pitching side of things.
Yeah, gut feeling, starting pitching, middle of the order bat, possible?
Starting pitching is so hard to find, but I think if you really need it, I think I would think starting pitching is the way they're going to go.
Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Hoynesy.
Thank you.
Paul Hoynes, make sure you check him out. Always great Guardians coverage. Pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.